Well, that's not going to happen. I do not see that scenario taking shape as people now get more and more focused on what's about to appear on their ballot.
America, a state that's been run by one party for 16 years, with the highest taxes in the country, the highest gas prices in the country, and more people leaving for Texas every month than any other state in America, is a little less than 12 days away from potentially electing a Republican governor for the first time since 2006. But here's the part that's getting buried in every headline that you've seen this week. The California Democratic Party paid for their own private poll back in March. Their money, their pollsters. And when the results came back, the chairman of the California Democratic Party got on a press call with reporters and said, this is a direct quote, by the way, the initial survey shows 2 Republicans in the lead with multiple Democrats trailing behind. Then the reporter asked, would you have preferred not to release those numbers? And he said, again, and I quote his own words, of course. The Democratic Party's own chairman admitted that the polling showed that his party was losing. He sat on it for weeks until reporters found it. And a man who just told a camera that that's not going to happen said it after his own party's numbers already showed that it was already happening. The person who could fix this for the Democrats is choosing to do nothing, and I'm going to show you exactly why. Trust me, guys, the reason has absolutely nothing to do with respecting California voters.
And right now, you have just 2 Republican candidates, and you've got so many Democratic candidates, and it's just a percentage game. And as a consequence of that, the more there are, with a fixed number of likely voters within that pool to choose, this could be a problem. That said, I'm not putting my thumb on anything at the moment.
I'm not putting my thumb on anything at the moment. The most powerful Democrat in the entire state of California, arguably, the governor, whose name is on every government building from Sacramento to San Diego, his party is little less than 12 days away from potentially getting shut down and shut out in November's ballot, absolutely entirety. And his answer here is some concern, and I'm not putting my thumb on anything. Here's what nobody has connected publicly yet. The reason Newsom won't touch this race has absolutely nothing to do with respecting the democratic process. And I'm going to give you that exact reason. What is up, guys? Tyson Dela Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. Before we go any deeper, I need to give you one piece of background that makes everything else in this video absolutely make sense. California uses what's called a jungle primary. Every candidate from every party runs the same race on the same ballot. Only the top 2 finishers move on to November general election, regardless of party. So to put this in perspective, if 2 Republicans finish first and second on June 2nd, November becomes Republican v. Republican, Republican versus Republican. 0 Democrats, locked out completely. Right now, there are 8 serious Democratic candidates running for governor. 8 plus 2 Republicans, Steve Hilton and Chad Bianco, all 10 names on the same June 2nd ballot. Democrats are splitting their pool of voters 8 different ways. Republicans are only splitting their voters 2.
We are within the 100-day stretch to the primary election in the California governor's race. The Democratic field is crowded and competitive. That might sound like a good thing for democracy, but it could actually backfire because of California's jungle primary. If the many Democrats split the vote, it's possible, yes, even in California, that 2 Republicans advance to the general election. The leader of the state's Democratic Party, Rusty Hicks, is pulling out all the stops to avoid that. He wrote an open letter to the candidates saying, with the filing deadline approaching this Friday, March 6th, and the primary election quickly following, it is imperative that every candidate honestly assess the viability of their candidacy and campaign.
He is the chairman of the party, and he can't control his own candidates. That tells you everything, you guys, about the state of California's Democratic Party right now. The chairman of California's Democratic Party, a man named Rusty Hicks. If you guys haven't heard of him, you guys got to strap in. A man named Rusty Hicks sent an open letter in March, and he said anybody without a real shot of winning should step out before the filing deadline. He set that deadline on April 15th. He did press conference after press conference, and here, my friends, is what happened on April 15th. Nobody left. Not one serious candidate dropped out. Now, here's the actual poll numbers from earlier this week and last week. Republican Steve Hilton sits at 22%. Democrat Xavier Becerra, right behind him, at 21%. Democrat Tom Steyer at 15%. Republican Chad Bianco at 10%. Democrat Miss Mashed Potatoes, that's a whole nother story. She literally dumped hot mashed potatoes on her ex-husband. Democrat candidate Katie Porter at 7%. Matt Mahan at 4%, never heard of him. Tony Thormond and Antonio Villalagros, Dances with Wolves, stuck at 1% each. Top two advance. If those numbers hold, it's Hilton v. Becerra, one Republican, one Democrat. A Democrat probably wins the race in California, but if Steyer catches Becerra or if Bianco closes in on Hilton, there is a real actual window where two Republicans finished first and second. And that is a scenario Rusty Hicks can't bring himself to say on camera.
That new poll providing a little bit of clarity as we enter the home stretch of the governor's race, but plenty of voters still have yet to make up their mind.
I like you personally, Javier, but you shouldn't be on the stage.
Two frontrunners now emerging with 2 weeks to go until the June primary. Republican Steve Hilton
that has got us into this mess.
And Democrat Javier Becerra.
I had nothing to do with that.
Neck and neck at the top, extending their leads in the last 2 weeks. The latest numbers released by the California Democratic Party now giving party chair Rusty Hicks some optimism.
Certainly we're closer to where we had hoped to be with a strong Democrat moving into the general election.
Closer than we hoped, not we're gonna win here. Listen to what he's not saying. Closer than we hoped. That is not a man celebrating here. This is a man calculating how far he has from the exit. And I want to show you why the calculation is still so scary for Democrats, even if the numbers slightly move in their direction. We already told you that Hicks's own internal polling showed two Republicans winning. Now, I want you to understand the timing of this because this is where the story actually really lives, you guys. The California Democratic Party commissioned that poll in mid-March. That was weeks before the filing deadline, weeks before any public alarm was actually raised here. They used an apparent outside firm. The numbers came back. Hicks got on a press call with reporters, read the numbers out loud. Two Republicans were in the lead. Then a reporter asked him directly, would you have preferred not to release the survey showing that two Republicans were ahead? He said on record, of course. That word right there and phrase, you guys, of course, is doing a lot of work here. He had those numbers. He sent an open letter. He set an April deadline. He went on every camera, newscast, and presser available. And on April 15th, every single candidate who was supposed to bow out gracefully or make a graceful exit, they stayed anyway.
I am saying out loud what plenty of people have been saying privately.
Ahead of the June primary election, chair of the California Democratic Party, Rusty Hicks, is calling for party consolidation in the race to succeed Governor Gavin Newsom.
To be prepared to either get viable or get out.
The panic here, you guys, inside this party was building way before you've seen it in public. The silence was obviously calculated here. Saying out loud what people were saying privately. My friends, that sentence tells you exactly how long this crisis has been building before a camera even interviewed anybody about the situation. This wasn't a sudden alarm here. This was a slow moving disaster that the Democrat insiders have been watching and watching and watching for months. And nobody obviously in the Democrat Party wanted to say it first because saying it meant actually meaning that you had to own the blame. And California's democratic politics, the blame is the currency that absolutely nobody ever runs on.
So why not call on specific candidates to drop out? Hicks says the polls speak for themselves.
This letter from you and leadership, is this the most kind of involvement, quote unquote, we're going to get ahead of the primary?
Only time will tell. I mean, this is a first step, and I think it was the best step for today.
He will not say one name, not Xavier, not Tom, not Miss Mashed Potatoes. He had every reporter, every camera, every platform he needed, and he couldn't bring himself to say, you specifically need to go home. You, Miss Mashed Potatoes. You need to go home, Miss Mashed Potatoes, because naming one means making an enemy. And Rusty Hicks needs all those people to still return his calls after June 3rd, when the party is trying to figure out what the heck happened. Now, here's the part, you guys, that nobody in mainstream media is connecting. And I held it until right now because I needed you to understand the entire picture. The California jungle primary. Democrats didn't fight it. They loved it. They loved it for years.
Well, it's very, very interesting, especially since being implemented, that Democrats have used this to their advantage in several completely very, very red districts where too many Republicans ran at once in a primary that allowed 2 Democrats to go into the general election and win in a place where technically they had absolutely no chance of getting the votes in very rural farming communities. And now all of a sudden, when they realize that they're on the verge of 2 Republicans going to November in the governor election, all of a sudden they say it doesn't work as intended. Well, it's worked intended up till now. It's bizarre.
The same math, the same system, the same rules that are now threatening to lock them out in November. And here's what happened a week after those numbers dropped. Congressman Robert Garcia, a Democrat from California, posted on social media that in 2028, California should get rid of the jungle primary. Rusty Hicks publicly agreed. That was 2 weeks before the primary that their entire House strategy depends on, a system that they built their careers on, a system they used to flip red districts. And now, my friends, it runs the other direction. All of a sudden, it needs to be abolished. You don't get to call the rules fair when you're winning and broken when you're losing in the dumps. That's not principle. That's just power.
The only way a Republican wins in California is if it's somehow out of this crazy jungle primary, 2 Republicans make it. But if there is one Democrat against Steve Hilton, whether it's Tom Steyer, whether it's Javier Becerra, that Democrat is going to win.
And my response to that is, you're probably right. But my question is that a good thing? Is it a good thing for California to continue to just vote for the same party that has created all these problems that everyone seems to agree do exist?
That is obviously, you guys, something you don't ask when things are working spectacularly here. That is the sound of a political establishment that's staring at the mirror. 1.23 million people have left this state. They went to Nashville, they went to Texas, to Florida. The movie industry completely left. Companies left. Housing is absolutely impossible. Gas is the most expensive anywhere in the country. 16 years of full Democratic control in Sacramento. Every problem that they promised to fix actually got bigger and worse. And now a Republican who moved here from England, who taught at Stanford and started a business and is running on your first $100,000 tax-free, is leading the polls.
So only 2 of us here actually represent real change away from that. Like millions of people before me, I came to this state in search of a dream. Like my parents, who left communist Hungary to England in search of freedom. I was brought up in a working-class immigrant family. I made it to Oxford University, started a business, worked in 10 Downing Street, came here in 2012 with my wife and my 2 sons, taught at Stanford, started a business, and now leading the race for governor. I want every single one of you to know that I see you. I believe in you. I won't accept that the California dream is something we talk about in the past tense.
22% in a 10-person race. That is not a protest video. That's a consolidation. Republican voters in the state where the party hasn't won a governor race since 2006 are getting behind one man. And they're getting behind him because he's saying the words that millions of Californians have been waiting for somebody to say. The dream here in California is not dead. It just needs different management. Now, here's what makes this a national story, not just a California one.
And if we did not have a Democratic candidate for governor at the top of the ticket in November of 2026, you could see a potential impact to those down ballot races, those congressional races that give us the opportunity to cut Donald Trump's term in half and end some of the hardship that so many have endured over the last 18 months or so.
Rusty Hicks said it himself on camera. The road to Democrats taking back the House runs through California. Those close congressional races, the ones that could actually flip the majority, depend on high Democratic turnout in November. No Democrat at the top of the California ticket means low Democratic turnout. Lower turnout means those House candidates don't get the boost that they actually need. And the chain reaction Democrats are counting on to cut President Trump's agenda in half starting January 2027 doesn't actually happen. This is not just a story about who runs Sacramento. This is a story about whether 8 people who each believe that they're born to be governor of California are willing to let the entire national Democratic strategy fall and fail because none of them, not a single one of them, want to go home.
I am the only person on this stage that has 33 years of proven public service based on integrity, honesty, character, transparency, and most importantly, proven leadership. California does not deserve, or should we have, another career politician promising you pie-in-the-sky ideas. What we need is a proven problem solver, a leader who will combat the policies that have ruined most of your lives.
Sheriff Bianco runs the 4th largest sheriff department in the entire country. 4,500 employees, 17 cities that contract him for their police force, a budget of $1.3 billion, and records back this up, finishes in the black every single year. He's also currently suing the state of California to overturn its sanctuary state laws, not campaigning on it, not promising to look at it, actively suing in court right now. He is at 10%, not because his record is weak. It's because he doesn't have a famous face. He doesn't have a television show. The gap between what he's done and where he sits on the polls tells you something important about how this race is actually being covered.
The Republicans have seemed to have made up their mind getting behind Steve Hilton. Democratic and, independent voters are getting there, but I think a lot of those voters are still looking around, asking friends who they're voting for. They don't seem to love any of these candidates. So
they don't seem to love these candidates. That's not a conservative commentator right there. That's not a right-leaning media outlet. That is a political reporter from the Los Angeles Times. The Los Angeles Times, you guys. A paper that has endorsed Democrats for governor in their state for absolutely decades. Sitting there saying that in less than 12 days out, Democrat voters are still shopping, still asking their friends, still not completely locked in. That's not a winning coalition here, you guys. That is a waiting room full of people who can't agree on a doctor. Now let's come back quickly to Gavin Newsom, because this is where the story turns from embarrassing to calculated. CNN had reported in early May that Newsom and Nancy Eyebrows Pelosi are working behind the scenes, not to endorse a candidate, not to publicly call anybody to step down, but to fund operations aimed at suppressing Republican turnout and driving Democrat voters to the polls. A kind of shadow strategy here. No public fingerprints, no names attached to it, just money moving quietly before the cameras even turn on.
Rusty Hicks, the head of the party, sent me his statement, and I read it a few hours ago, and I confess I agree. And I don't really process it because there's just, at this moment in history, with all the peril and promise that marks this moment, for California, the most un-Trump state in America, to have a Republican Trumper running, there is no margin for error.
Yeah.
This is a moment for real self-reflection. Is it about you, is it about me, or is it about all of us? And the stakes couldn't be higher. And so all I'll say is choose wisely.
Choose wisely. That is what you say when you want to take credit for being serious without actually taking any risk about being serious. You didn't just say who to choose. You didn't say you should leave. He said choose wisely, which is a political version of telling a drowning person good decisions matter here. Good luck. Newsom then gets to point at that clip if Democrats win in November. He gets to conveniently shrug it off if a Republican wins and say that he told them to choose wisely and that they didn't listen. No fingerprints, no blame, no skin in the game. Sounds very familiar. And here's what you need to know about what Gavin Newsom is actually doing. At least in my opinion, he's the most powerful Democrat in the most democratic state in the country. One endorsement from him, even a quiet one or a side-eye DM one from him, could consolidate the Democrat vote overnight and almost certainly guarantee a Democrat makes it on the November ballot. Gavin Newsom refused to make that call. He refused to pick a particular side, and he will keep refusing it until the morning of June 3rd. Not because he respects the voters' right to choose, because he's protecting himself for 2028. If he picks a candidate and that candidate loses, it damages him on the national stage as a national figure, as Gavin Newsom, presidential campaign ambitions. If he stays neutral and California elects a Republican governor, while he's already off on a national book tour, he can frame the loss as what happens when Democrats don't listen to Governor Gavin Newsom. Either way, he walks away squeaky clean. California, either way, pays the price. America, here's what nobody's going to tell you the morning after June 2nd. If a Republican wins the California governor race in November, even one Republican against one Democrat in a state that went Democratic by 30 points in the last presidential election, it becomes the most studied political event in the country for the next 4 years. Every strategist here, every donor, every campaign manager in America will take California apart to understand what the heck happened. And the answer they'll find will not be the Republican was exceptional. The answer here will be 16 years of unchecked one-party control finally produced a bill that the voters refused to pay. And that finding travels to every city, every county, every state where Democrats have run things unopposed and called it governance. The jungle primary was their tool. They used it to win district after district. They had no business absolutely winning in the first place, and they called it fair and democratic and good for voters every single time that it helped them win. And my friends, now it's the trap they can't escape without looking like exactly what they are. They wrote the rules when the rules worked for them. They're rewriting the rules now. The voters haven't changed. The math has. When those June 2nd results come in, I'm breaking them down that night, the next morning. Who makes the top two? What does it mean for the November race? And exactly what it means for those House seats Hicks told you that this was all riding on. Let me know what you guys think about this. Drop it down in the comments section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.